there, it's Juliana Michaels and welcome to my channel. Today I'm sharing something I get asked about all the time. What are my absolute must-have card making tools and supplies? With so many products out there, it can be overwhelming to know what's actually worth investing in. So today I'm cutting through the noise and sharing my true desert island essentials. The ones that if I could only keep a handful of items, these would be it. Whether you're looking for gift ideas for the crafter in your life, or you're building your own craft stash strategically, I'm walking you through the tools and supplies that have proven their worth in my studio time and time again, and more importantly, why each one has earned its permanent spot on my desk. Now let's get into it. So when it comes to die cutting and my desert island crafting, of course, I had to include some of my favorite and go-to tools and dies for die cutting. The Sizzix Big Shot, it's the big main machine that I use for most of my die cutting. It's kind of a workhorse. It will cut all the things with a variety of just mixing in and switching out the cutting pads and plates. And with that in mind as well, there's some different cutting plates that I also would need. Of course, the standard cutting plates that come with the machine. But then I also really like the chrome precision plate, and that is made for working with super detailed dies and just allows you to get a good cut, especially when you're working with thicker paper like the distress watercolor cardstock. And then the other mat that I like to work with is the Magic Mat from scrapbook.com, and this works better for more simple shapes, but it will help extend the life of your cutting plates because you compare this. So you would put this in the machine and then your die and paper and then one of your standard cutting plates, and it just keeps it from warping and will help it last a little longer. When it comes to some dies, one of my favorites that I would want to include is this nested vintage classic labels. This is just a great base layer for all the things. You can, stamp it and color it, die cut it, layer it under things. So just a lot of options there. And then just some other dies that I go to a lot when I'm crafting are the scribbly butterflies, and then these Wildflower 1 and Wildflower 2 dies. And these are all from Timholtz and Sizzix. And, these are layered, so you can cut them from different kinds of paper, color the different layers, and then with the flowers, you can color them solid or you can make them more realistic looking. So just a lot of options when it comes to using these, and then they're great for mixing and matching and layering. Now, one other thing that I also really like when it comes to die cutting, especially if I'm working with smaller dies, is my little Sizzix Sidekick, and this is just perfect for using with small dies. It's just got a much smaller opening, so you can't use it with like these larger nested dies or the larger butterfly here, but like it would work with the flowers and any other smaller dies that you might have. And that's just a look at the die cutting tools that I would want with me. Now we're going to go on to my stamping must-haves. One of my for sure favorite tools when it comes to stamping is the Misty stamping platform. And the first time I tried this, it's been many years ago now, but it changed my stamping game and gave me the confidence to stamp a lot better and not be worried about getting a poor image, because it just allows you to get really precise stamping, whether you're working with like layered stamps or you're needing to stamp an image a second time because you didn't get maybe enough ink on the whole stamp. So I just absolutely love having a stamping platform. And then I also like to have some stamping blocks to work with as well. And that is more for if I'm stamping on something that's not paper, like if I'm working in an art journal or something that maybe isn't like really super smooth, or if I'm not super concerned with having a perfect image, like if I'm going for a more distressed effect, then the stamping blocks are great for that. And then this larger one is also great to use kind of as a paperweight. Like if you've glued some layers together, you can just sit this on top and that weight can kind of hold things in place while it dries. So just a little extra bonus with the larger stamping block. And then, of course, no stamping would be complete without some ink. And my go-to is always the archival ink from Ranger and Timholtz. And this is just a permanent waterproof ink. So it will allow you to stamp and then watercolor or use any kind of wet mediums over it, and it won't bleed or run at all. And of course, this comes in a 4-pack with these 4 colors, so just gives you some variety there with the permanent ink colors. And then, of course, you have to have good paper, and my favorite for pretty much everything is Distress Watercolor cardstock. I always work on the smooth side, so it has a texture and a smooth side. I always work on the smooth side for my own personal preference, but this is a really thick, heavy paper that can take all different kinds of mediums, whether it's inks, sprays, pastes, and you can watercolor on it, of course, and so it's just always my go-to with all the things. And then, of course, we're stamping, so you've got to have some stamps. And these are probably my 3 most favorite stamp sets that I have in my collection. And it's the entomology stamp set. I absolutely love the script stamp. And then, of course, I'm a big entomology kind of bug lover, but not in real life because I don't really like bugs. But I do love butterflies. So this has got a few butterflies and moths on there. Another set that has always been a go-to of mine since I first got it was Field Notes, and I just love that it's just got all these little bits and pieces that you can mix and match and collage with, and just gives you lots of options. And then this floral trim stamp set. I find these images absolutely beautiful, and they're great images for coloring and a variety of techniques because they're a little bit wider open, so you can do some different things with them. So again, there's a look at my stamping must-haves. Now, one thing I know I could not go without are my distress inks. Now, I love all of the distress mediums, the sprays, the oxides, the spritzes, the embossing glazes, the crayons, the watercolor pencils, but if I had to pick one that I prefer, it would be the distress inks. And here you can just see kind of the colors that I would pick as well. These are my favorite go-to colors that I use a lot. So my neutrals here are Old Paper, Ground Espresso, and Vintage Photo. And then I kind of have a rainbow of colors here that I picked out that I love to work with. It's Aged Mahogany, Rusty Hinge, Fossilized Amber, Peeled Paint, Seedless Preserves, and Uncharted Mariner. And these are kind of darker, earthy colors, which are really my go-to, but I also like that these darker colors, when you add water to them, you can lighten them up. So it does give you some nice options of kind of being able to create darker and lighter colors and shades, and layering them, you can go darker even than what they are on their own. So again, these are just my favorite inks. Also, I love their water reactive properties, so you can do a lot of different techniques with them, from ink smushing to watercoloring. You can stamp with them. They're not going to give you a great crisp stamped image, but that said, they can be used for stamping if you want to. Yeah, they've always been my favorite go-to, and yes, this is what I would select to take with me. Now, of course, if you were to pick your color palette, you may pick totally different colors. Again, this is just kind of my choice of colors that I would want to take with me. So next up is a look at the ink blending brushes, and as you can see, I have a wide variety of them here, different types and sizes, and different tools for different techniques. Each one to me is suited for a different type of technique. So like these larger ones here from Simon Hurley, I find these are the ones that I prefer to use if I'm going to be inking a large area, such as a background, because they're just a larger surface area, so they're going to put more ink down a little bit faster. These smaller ones here, I am tending to find that I really like the flat surface for when I'm putting ink through, like stencils or even ink blending over just a flat surface like with these larger ones. I just feel like it gets the ink on there a little bit better. And these smaller ones, of course, are great when working with stencils to get in like the tiny little areas, like if you've got a stencil that maybe different sections need to be colored with different colors. This just gives you more ability to kind of get into those little nooks and crannies a little easier, and the different sizes just make that easier as well. I also, like these kind of original blending brushes that kind of have a little bit more of a rounded dome to them. And these work great too for inking large areas as well. I just kind of have found that I like these just a little bit better. But these can also be used with stencils. I do prefer more of that bristle type brush when working with stencils, but with this being a little bit larger surface area, if you've got smaller details, it's kind of a little bit harder to get the ink colors in there. Again, different techniques, different tools. And then I also like kind of the old school foam dome blending brushes as well. And I prefer these. These are what I use when I'm inking the edges of my cardstock or my die cuts. And I use this larger one for like larger pieces of paper and this smaller one for die cuts. And I just find that this holds the ink on, and the bristle ones, when you try to rub it along the edge, I just find that the bristles move a little bit too much and it just takes longer to get the ink on there. So this is just my preference for inking the edges of things. And so there you have it. This is a look at the ink blending tools that I would want. So next up, I'm going to be sharing some layering and texture tools that I would want with me. And that would include some stencils here. These are some of my favorite go-to ones from Timholtz and Stampers Anonymous. And this one is called Splotches. And I really like this one because you can get some large areas of color and texture, but you can also, it's large enough that you could stamp through it and get some cool techniques that way. I love a good floral, so this one called Floral is obviously one of my favorites. Again, you can add various colors to it and textures and just gives you some varieties. These also layer together nicely from the different sizes. Another one that I really love for adding some texture is called Dot Fade. And again, these all just kind of nice, having a tinier one and a bigger one, and then something with like more organic shape to it. And then you can't go wrong with a text one. This is called Script. And again, these are all, like I said, kind of some of my favorite go-to stencils when it comes to doing any kind of stencil work. And then speaking of stencils and texture, if I had to pick from any other mediums to bring with me, it would be some texture paste. And this is the texture paste matte. This one is the white texture paste, and then this is the black one. Again, they're both going to give you some great options when it comes to adding texture to your projects. And then, of course, to apply those, you're going to need some palette knives. So would definitely want to include those as well. So there's a look at some things I would like for layering and texture. And this is a look at the pre-made embellishments and ephemera that I would want with me that are from Timholtz. And one of my favorites is the salvage tag. So it just comes with a pack of different tags, different sizes, and then even the little string that you can add onto them. There's also the ticket book, which is just lots of different tickets and pieces in there, different sizes that you can punch out and use on your projects. There's also the postmark sticker book, which is just basically a rainbow of postage stamps in all different colors and different sizes. And it's just perfect, again, for just adding in and tucking in here and there. And there's even some blank ones where you could make your own stamps if you'd like. And then lastly would be the cello sticker tape. And this comes in a variety of different widths and just another great thing you can use and add a little vintage touch to your projects. So next up, I'm going to share adhesives that actually work. These are my favorite go-to adhesives that I have been using over and over again. First up, and this is kind of new to me, but I've just started using, is the Barely Art Precision Craft Glue. And what I love about it, of course, is that it's got this fine tip, but it also dries clear, which when I'm working with die cuts and small pieces, this is perfect on so many levels because of the precision tip and that it dries clear. Another option for some precision adhesive that I also like is this craft glue pen from scrapbook.com. And I like about it because it can either be permanent or semi-permanent depending on how you apply it. So you can apply it, let it dry, and then stick things together for a little bit and it'll be kind of a semi-permanent. And then once you actually really apply it, then it's super permanent. So that's another great option for some precision detail. And then I also really like the Artiste craft glue from scrapbook.com, and this comes in a larger bottle, but I actually find that I really like this small one better. It doesn't clog as bad, and it has a really fine tip on it, so it can also be used for smaller detail work if you need to. The only thing you do want to remember with this one is it is a white glue, so it does not dry clear. So as far as the difference between these two. But again, if you're just needing some good adhesives for adhering things down, these work great for that when it comes to liquid adhesives. Now, if you're needing something stronger, that's a whole nother desert island adventure. As far as other adhesives go, when it comes to adding a little bit of dimension, I love using foam adhesive. This is just 1 millimeter thick, so it's not super thick, which I also really like. So it doesn't add too much bulk, but just enough to give it a little extra pizzazz. And I really love the 1/4 inch roll of the 1 millimeter, and then I really love the large and small squares as well. And then finally, I love a double-sided tape. This is just a real easy, you can tear it with your fingers, so I use this a lot of times instead of a tape runner, and I can just kind of put it where I want it, and it sticks great with a variety of different textures and surfaces. And you can also use this in combination with a liquid adhesive to get a little bit extra adhesion if you need to, for a little bit extra strength if you've got something that's not wanting to adhere as well. And there you have it. That is a look at my go-to adhesives. Next up are my essential hand tools. So these are my go-to tools that are near me at all times when I'm crafting. First up is my heat tool. This can be used to help speed up the drying process with any kind of wet mediums. You can heat emboss with it. It just takes a lot longer to do that. And heat embossing, while I love doing it, it's probably not something that I would bother with on my desert island. But this definitely must have. Obviously a paper trimmer of some sort. This small guillotine one from Timholtz is my absolute favorite, and I've had this for years. It's still super sharp, cuts perfectly every time, and I just absolutely could not craft without that. I also love my distress sprayer. So this is just a bottle of water and a sprayer, so you can add water to mediums to do a variety of techniques, from ink smushing to watercoloring and even more. Then I would also want a water brush. This just holds water, and you can use this to pick up ink and watercolor with it. So of course that would be with me. And this is the craft pick tool from scrapbook.com, and on one end it's got a pokey tool that you can use to like poke things out, like on your dies, to help clean out the dies with the little negative pieces that get stuck in them sometimes. You can use it as a piercing tool if you needed. And then on the other end it has a little pickup tool that will pick up small detailed pieces. And then on the inside there's also this little scraper tool, and then another little poking tool that you can use for some other techniques. I believe this works with like the gemstone stuff, but the main two I use are the ones I showed you originally. Then I would like a pair of tweezers. I prefer this type of a tweezer, not a reverse grip tweezer. It's just a personal preference, but definitely would need a pair of tweezers. And then scissors. And yes, 3 different kinds because different sizes for different things. These cutter bee scissors are my go-to when it comes to doing any kind of fussy cutting. And then I like these timholtz scissors for cutting adhesives or cardstock, thicker papers. And just these longer ones are just nice when you're working with larger pieces of paper. So it just kind of cuts it a little bit faster. But these will cut through thin chipboard and a variety of thick textured papers and things, as well as it will cut through adhesive strips, foam strips, and that sort of thing as well. And so there you have it. There's a look at my must-have hand tools. So next I want to share my Workspace game changers. And these are just a variety of tools that I find that I use on a very regular basis pretty much every day in my craft room. So first up is the heat tool organizer from scrapbook.com, and I just love that I can keep my heat tools in here and I don't have to worry about them. If they're hot on the ends, I can just stick them in these little metal cups and I don't have to worry about them burning or melting anything. And then there's just some great spaces for storage. I use this other one to hold some of my scissors, and then this little front bin I use to store a lot of my other little items. This particular insert fits in here perfectly, but this is just a pencil holder that I found on Amazon that just happens to fit in there perfectly. But there's a lot of space in here. You know, you could put a lot of things in there. You know, you could also put your stamping blocks, your stamping platform, all those would fit in there. Or, you know, I can use this to hold like a variety of different tools and adhesives and things like that. So just a lot of versatile ways to use this. Next up, my go-to for almost all of my crafting is the replacement mat for the timholtz glass media mat. And this is just a silicone mat, and it has a little bit of a slight texture to it, but this mat just is my go-to when it comes to ink blending and ink smishing, which are 2 of my favorite techniques. And it also will protect your work surface. Adhesives won't adhere to it, so it cleans up super easy. And you can use your heat tools on it and it won't melt. So it's just a very versatile tool and one that I absolutely can't craft without. Another great mat is the Grip Mate from scrapbook.com, and this is just a large photopolymer stamp basically that's just solid. But what this is great for is using to hold stencils and paper in place because it's sticky. I love using it with my stencils and paper and holding things in place. You can also put little die cuts on there and hold them in place when you're inking them. So it's just a really versatile tool. Another tool that I really love having to work with is a glass mat. This is the magnetic glass mat from scrapbook.com. And it comes with 4 magnets, but they're not, I'll be super honest, they're not super strong. So I really do like the glass board magnets. And they come in a variety of different sizes and shapes and colors. The bigger the magnet, the stronger it is. So like these big ones here are pretty strong. I mean, you can hear it clamp down on there and they're not moving. So these will move a little bit. They're a little bit easier, these smaller ones, but the big ones aren't going anywhere without you really giving some pressure to them. So you may or may not need ones that strong depending on what kind of projects you like to work with. This mat is about 13 by 13 inches. But if you are interested in one that's larger, you can hear Ziva in the background. She's squeaking her little ball. Glassboard Studio has larger glass mats that come in a variety of colors if you wanted to have something that would like coordinate with your craft space. And then of course, with it being a glass mat, it's super easy to clean up. It's not going to stain. You can use your heat tools on it. So just a very versatile tool to have. Now, of course, no craft space stays clean all the time, so I love using the Crafty cleanup cloths for cleaning up things. These are just a microfiber cloth, which I know some people are like, oh, it scratches and catches on my skin. I don't have that problem, I guess, but it's washable, reusable. There's no lint with it. It's super absorbent, and I use it to clean everything from just like inks on my craft mat to cleaning my stamps to all the things. And then lastly are the scrapbook.com storage bins. I love these things. I use them all the time to store so many things. Like, I mean, right here you can see this has the stamps, dies, adhesives, embellishments, ink pads, and texture paste that I shared with you earlier. And these also come with a storage lid. I actually like to use the lid as a tray, so you can like keep track of, you know, die cuts. You can put them on here and have them all together. You know, I like to use these bins for storing my stamps in them. I store my ink sprays in them. So they're so versatile, and they're not so big that they can get too heavy where you can't carry them and move them around. And I like that they're a nice size that I can have them stored somewhere else in my room and then just bring them to my desk. I also use them to sort like projects if I'm working with new release products, for example, and I can just kind of keep everything all together there. So it's a great way to organize your projects. Like if you're working on your Christmas cards or birthday cards, you can kind of put all that stuff together in there and have it ready to go, and you can take it anywhere. So there you have it. So that's a look at my essential workspace tools. So there are my true desert island card making essentials. The tools and supplies that have absolutely earned their keep in my studio, and the ones that I go to over and over again. Whether you're treating yourself, building your craft stash strategically, or shopping for the crafter in your life, I hope this gives you some solid ideas for tools that will actually get used. I'd love to know what would make your desert island list. What's the one tool or supply you reach for constantly? Drop it in the comments below. And if you found this helpful, all of these items are linked in the description box below with my affiliate links. Using those links helps support this channel at no extra cost to you. If you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you gave it a thumbs up and subscribed for more crafty inspiration, tips, and techniques. And don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, stay crafty, my friend.